Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive in. Today we're taking a look at the camel trader of Babylon, which is a story from the classic The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason.
Yep, the richest man in Babylon.
Now, our mission here is to pull out those key insights and that knowledge that's going to be useful to you. And this particular story, it's packed with wisdom, let me tell you. We're talking about ancient Babylonian wisdom on handling debt, building self-respect, and honestly finding your path in life. And all this is wrapped up in this really captivating story.
Yeah, and I think that's why The Richest Man in Babylon has been so popular for so long. It might be set in ancient times, but it still speaks to us today, about like our own human nature and how we handle our finances and stuff.
It's timeless, right?
Yeah.
So, the story centers around a guy named Tarkad. And, he's not doing so hot at the beginning. Can you set the scene for us?
Oh, Tarkad's in a bad way. I mean, the guy is starving, like seriously hungry. Clason tells us that he'd only managed to, sneak a couple of figs over the last 2 days. Oh, man.
And can you imagine that being in the middle of this bustling marketplace in Babylon, surrounded by food everywhere, but, you can't afford any of it?
It's like torture, all those smells.
Right. And to make matters worse, Karkad's trying to avoid this camel trader named Debesir because he owes him some money, a couple of copper coins and a piece of silver.
Yikes.
So, he's pacing back and forth, hoping someone will take pity on him, maybe spare a coin so he can get something to eat.
Of course, then who does he bump into?
Debasir himself.
Ugh, talk about bad timing.
Yeah. And Debasir, this tall, bony guy, he's actually happy to see Tarkad. But only because he wants his money back, right?
Makes sense.
He's pretty blunt about it. What say, boy? What say? But here's the thing. Instead of, yelling at him or something, Debasir actually invites him to come and eat with him.
Oh, that's unexpected.
Yeah, it kind of throws you off a bit. I mean, Tarkad's obviously uncomfortable, can't pay the debt. But Debasir just shrugs it off and starts ordering all this amazing food. Okay, but that has to be kind of awkward, right? Tarkad's super ashamed, hasn't eaten in days, and Debasir's over here ordering a feast.
Totally. You can just feel the tension.
Yeah.
Debasir orders this whole leg of goat with dates, bread, wine, the whole works. And for Tarkad, just a jug of water. It's a stark reminder of, just how bad things have gotten for him. But then as they're eating, Debasir starts telling Tarkad his own story, how he got to be a camel trader.
All right, so what's his story? Because I'm guessing he didn't start out that way.
Oh, no, not at all. He used to be a saddle maker working with his dad. Then he got married and things went south. He started spending more than he earned, trying to impress people, buying fancy clothes and all that. He actually calls it sowing the winds of needless self-indulgence.
Wow, that's something we can all relate to, right? That temptation to overspend, keeping up with the Joneses and all that.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about it. How many times have you bought something you didn't really need?
More than I care to admit.
Right. It's a trap that's easy to fall into.
Okay, but how do you go from overspending to, becoming a camel trader?
So it all spiraled pretty fast. He couldn't keep up with his debts, his wife left him, and he felt like he had to get out of Babylon, for a fresh start.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But it didn't work out the way he'd hoped. He ends up joining this group of robbers, and he talks about this period as seeing the world through a colored stone, which I think is a really powerful image.
Seeing the world through a colored stone.
Right.
So he wasn't really seeing things clearly, right?
Right, like he was blinded to the reality of his choices, Didn't realize how far he'd fallen.
So what happened with this whole robbing thing? Did it work out for him?
Not so much. They got caught on their second attempt.
Busted.
Yeah, by some local guards. They were all taken to Damascus and sold into slavery. He describes this moment being considered as a eunuch for his master's wives, and he was terrified. It shows you, how desperate his situation had become.
Man, that's rough. But so how did he get out of that?
So this is where Sarah comes in. She's the first wife of his master. She actually steps in and argues against making him a eunuch, says they need a camel tender instead.
Okay.
And she asks Debasir if he knows anything about camels, and luckily he does. So instead of a much worse fate, he ends up becoming Sirah's camel tender.
That's a lucky break.
Yeah, it was. And it leads to this really important conversation between them. You could argue it's like the turning point of the whole story.
All right, so what did Sirah say that was so impactful?
She really challenged his entire worldview. She asked him basically how he could still consider himself a free man when he'd made such bad choices and ended up as a slave. And she had this idea that it's about what's inside you, like your soul, that determines whether you're a slave or a free man. And that no matter what your circumstances are, that inner quality will determine your path in life. And she says, like, if a man has in himself the soul of a slave, will he not become one no matter what his birth? And then she flicks it and says, if a man has within him the soul of a free man, will he not become respected and honored in his own city in spite of his misfortune?
That's deep. So it's not about your circumstances, it's about your mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you acting out of a sense of agency and responsibility, or are you letting your circumstances control you?
So what else did she say?
Well, she also confronts him about his debts back in Babylon, asks him straight up if he even wants to pay them back. She says, and I'm quoting here, if thou contentedly let the years slip by and make no effort to repay, then thou hast but the contemptible soul of a slave. No man is otherwise who cannot respect himself, and no man can respect himself who does not repay honest debts.
Strong words.
Yeah, she doesn't sugarcoat it. And then she compares his debts to enemies that drove him out of Babylon, saying he didn't even try to fight them.
Wow, so it's not just about the money, it's about owning up to your mistakes.
Exactly. And her words seem to have a real impact on him.
So what happens next?
So 3 days later, Sira does something totally unexpected. She helps Dabasir escape.
What's really?
Yeah, she gives him 2 of her husband's best camels, food, supplies, even a disguise. And she's going to tell everyone that he stole the camels while she was visiting her sick mother.
She's putting herself at risk to help them. I mean, that's huge. It really shows you how much you believed in him.
Yeah, definitely.
So what was Dibasir's journey like after he escaped?
Oh man, it was brutal. Clason paints this picture of him crossing the desert, no food, barely any water under the scorching sun. It was a real test of his willpower, you know. This wasn't just like a walk in the park to freedom. He had to push himself to the limit.
It sounds like it. And it was during that ordeal that he had a moment of clarity, right?
Right. Out there in the desert, facing death, he has to confront Sira's question again. Does he have the soul of a slave or a free man? And then some crazy happens. Clason says that it was like the world around him changed color, as if a colored stone had been removed from his eyes.
There's that colored stone analogy again. But this time, it's like he's seeing things clearly, right?
Exactly. Suddenly everything clicks. He knows he has to go back to Babylon, face his debts, and rebuild his life the right way.
So what triggered that change?
He realized that his debts weren't just like random numbers. The people he owed money to were actually his friends, people who had trusted him. He thought to himself, my debts were my enemies, but the men I owed were my friends, for they had trusted me and believed in me.
So it became personal. It wasn't just about the money anymore.
Right. He saw the human side of his responsibility, the trust he had broken.
That makes sense. So he goes back to Babylon. What happens next?
So he goes back with this new sense of purpose. He doesn't try to hide. He finds each of his creditors, explains what happened, and asks for their patience. And some of them are actually pretty understanding, even offer him food and some help.
Really?
Yeah. He specifically mentions this gold lender, Mathon, who actually helps him get a job with a wealthy camel trader named Nebator. Dabasir uses the skills he learned in Syria to earn money and start paying off his debts.
So he completely turns his life around.
He goes from being a runaway slave to a respected man in Babylon, all because he changed his mindset and decided to take responsibility. And there's this great moment at the end where he actually offers Tarkad some food, which just shows you how far he's come.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the main takeaway here? What should we as listeners be learning from Dabasir?
Clason puts it perfectly. Where the determination is, the way can be found. And that's really the key to overcoming challenges, right? Dabasir shows us that even when things seem hopeless, if you have the willpower and the right mindset, you can find a way forward.
So to wrap up our deep dive here, the Camel Trader of Babylon teaches us to confront our debts, develop a strong sense of determination, and embrace that soul of a free man, someone who takes responsibility for their actions and strives to improve their situation. And sometimes, all it takes is removing those colored stones, those negative perspectives, to see the path ahead clearly.
That's it. It's an ancient story with a timeless message.
So for all of you listening out there, think about a challenge you're facing right now. How can you apply this idea that with determination, you can find a way? And what colored stone do you need to remove to see things more clearly?
It's something worth thinking about.
As always, thanks for joining us for this deep dive, folks. We'll catch you next time.